The movie kicks off deep in the jungle, where a tribesman and a young child are making their way through the thick trees. Out of nowhere, a loud mechanical noise pierces the calm, and they spot a bulldozer tearing through the forest. The child is clearly terrified. Back in the US, we meet Justine, a college student living with her roommate, Casey. Looking out the window, Justine sees a group of student activists on a hunger strike, demanding health insurance for janitors. Later in class, the two girls listen to a disturbing lecture about the brutal practices some African tribes perform on women. The topic horrifies them. Justine brings up the idea of involving her father, a lawyer for the United Nations, but the professor tells her that ending such cultural practices would be nearly impossible. After class, one of the activists, Jonah, approaches Justine and invites her to join their group, which is led by a confident and intense guy named Alejandro. Justine says she'll think about it, but when she and Casey talk about it later, they both feel these activist types are wasting their time. Despite her doubts, Justine ends up attending one of their meetings. She learns that the group is planning a trip to the Amazon rainforest in Peru to protest against petrochemical companies bulldozing land and displacing native tribes in order to extract natural gas. Alejandro explains their plan. They'll livestream the destruction and expose the company online to shame them into stopping. Justine jokes about starving in the jungle, which doesn't go over well with Alejandro. He kicks her out of the meeting. A few days later, Justine apologizes and decides to join the group after all. She says goodbye to her dad and Casey and flies to Peru with the rest of the activists. Once in Peru, they meet Carlos, the guy sponsoring the operation. They stop at a restaurant where Alejandro reiterates the plan to live-stream the land clearing. Samantha brings up the need for weapons, but Alejandro insists their only weapon is their phones. He says if one of them gets shot, it would spark outrage, and the attackers wouldn't risk killing everyone. Still, the group looks uneasy. Alejandro gives them one final chance to back out. No one does. They head deeper into the jungle by boat, make a quick stop to change clothes and leave some of their belongings behind. When they reach the site, they set an explosive and chain themselves to bulldozers and trees to begin their protest. Justine struggles with her lock and starts to panic, calling for help, but Kara completely ignores her. The explosive detonates, drawing attention, and the group begins filming the destruction while chained up. Soon an armed militia shows up and tries to remove them, but they can't because they're locked in. One of the soldiers grabs Justine and points a gun at her, threatening to shoot if the group doesn't stop filming. While Justine sobs and begs for help, Alejandro urges them to keep filming, insisting this would expose the violence used against peaceful protesters. But just as things escalate, the militia receives a phone call and backs off. The whole group is then arrested but eventually released after Carlos bribes the authorities. They celebrate the operation as a success. They're trending online, but Justine is shaken. She's furious the group was willing to let her get killed just for publicity. Then disaster strikes. Mid-flight back home, the plane's engine explodes. The pilots lose control and the aircraft crashes into the jungle. Kara and another group member are sucked out during the chaos and die instantly. The rest survive the crash, though the pilots are killed. The remaining group members scramble out just before the wreckage explodes. As they try to figure out what to do, Kara hears something in the jungle and walks toward it, calling out for help. Suddenly, an arrow shoots into her neck, killing her. Panic sets in. The rest try to flee, but they're all taken down by tranquilizer darts shot by unseen attackers. Justine wakes up later to find herself and the others being carried on boats by a headhunter and his tribe. Once across the river, they're dragged into a village. The tribe members curiously inspect their heads, then the village elder arrives and gives an order. Everyone is thrown into a cage, except Jonah. The tribe forces Jonah to drink something before laying him out on a massive rock. The elder walks up and gouges Jonah's eye out with a sharp spike, eating it in front of everyone. The rest of the group watches in horror from their cage. Jonah is then butchered and cooked, and his remains are served to the tribe. Alejandro, disturbingly calm, says the tribe now sees them as enemies. That night, the group sits hopelessly in the cage while the villagers celebrate. Lars says no one will ever find them in the jungle, but Daniel believes their only shot is to get back to the crashed plane and grab a GPS device before the battery dies. Alejandro cuts in and tells them they're better off staying in the cage. Then he drops a bombshell. The whole protest had been a setup. Carlos was hired by a rival petrochemical company to delay another company from reaching the land first. The goal was never to save the tribes, it was to manipulate public opinion and raise awareness for their group. He admits he doesn't care about the indigenous people. The stunt was just to make them famous and get more people to join, eventually leading to real change. According to Alejandro, they've already bought the company 3 days of delay, and once the next set of bulldozers show up, they'll be able to escape in the chaos. Alejandro, cold and indifferent, makes a disgusting comment about how it's great Jonah was eaten quickly since he'll feed the tribe for a week. His words infuriate Daniel and Justine. Tension rises in the cage and Samantha tries to make a break for it. She doesn't get far. One of the guards shoots her with a tranquilizer dart. The next morning, Justine tries to gain the trust of a young village girl by playing her flute necklace. The child seems to enjoy the music, but the moment is short-lived. The headhunter appears and pulls Justine, Samantha, and Amy out of the cage. They're subjected to a virginity test by the tribe elder. When they realize Justine is a virgin, she's taken away to a hut for some sort of traditional ceremony. Samantha and Amy are thrown back into the cage. Later, during a heavy rainstorm, the group causes a distraction, giving Samantha a chance to slip out of the cage unnoticed. She manages to escape into the jungle, struggling through mud and vines until she reaches the river and boards a boat. Not long after, Justine is returned to the cage, looking weak and dazed, her skin covered in white powder. She doesn't remember what was done to her. The kids of the village soon bring in a bowl filled with mystery meat. With no other choice, the group starts to eat. Amy, a vegan, hesitates but eventually gives in and finishes the contents. As she scrapes the bottom of the bowl, she spots a piece of skin, one with a tattoo that belonged to Samantha. That's when she realizes they've been fed Samantha's remains. In shock, Amy smashes the bowl and uses a sharp piece to slit her own throat, ending her life instantly. Knowing the tribe will come for Amy's body next, Lars quickly stuffs a stash of weed into her mouth, hoping it might affect the villagers when they eat her. Sure enough, the headhunter collects Amy's body and prepares it for cooking. Later, as the villagers feast, the effects of the weed kick in. One by one they begin to act high, giggling and stumbling around. Seizing the moment, Justine climbs out of the cage. Daniel follows. When Lars tries to join them, Alejandro stabs him with a tranquilizer dart, refusing to be left behind alone. Justine and Daniel run for their lives through the dense jungle. Lars eventually wakes up and finds 2 stoned villagers nearby. He tries to distract them with goofy gestures and they laugh, giving him a brief chance to escape. But his luck runs out. More villagers catch up and he's eaten alive while Alejandro sits back and watches. Meanwhile, Justine and Daniel reach the river and spot smoke rising in the distance. Justine tries to leap across a rock but slips and gets dragged by the current. She clings to a rock until Daniel helps her with a tree branch. The two reach the site of the plane crash and are horrified to find the bodies of their dead friends, now strung up and rotting. They find the GPS device but the battery is already dead. Just when all hope seems lost, they hear a phone ringing. As they try to retrieve the phone from Kara's pocket, the noise attracts nearby villagers. They're caught and dragged back to the village. The next morning, Justine wakes up tied inside a hut while a tribal medicine woman paints her body in white. Daniel is tied to a post, his skin smeared in green mold. Ants begin crawling over him, biting deep into his flesh. As the elders start some kind of ritual on Justine, the ceremony is interrupted. A villager runs in holding the severed head of one of their own. Enraged, the tribe rushes out to confront their enemies, leaving behind only a few kids to watch the captives. The same child who had liked Justine's flute earlier sneaks in and unties her hands. Justine then frees her feet, takes out the medicine woman and escapes from the hut. She finds Daniel in agony from the ant bites. He begs her to take the phone from his pocket and leave him behind, saying he's in too much pain and ready to die. The child then blows a sleep-inducing powder into Daniel's face and quietly slits his throat, sparing him from more suffering. The child leads Justine into the forest to escape. As she runs, Alejandro calls out from the cage, pleading for her help. Justine stops for a moment but ultimately walks away, leaving him behind. When the boy leads her to safety, she gives him her flute necklace in gratitude. She tries using Kara's phone but its battery dies too. Soon, Justine stumbles upon a violent clash between the militia and the tribe. Many of the villagers are slaughtered, including the headhunter. Justine throws up her hands and shouts that she's American. She then pretends to film the battle to de-escalate the situation and smashes the phone to prove her point. The militia leader has her taken away, and she's escorted to a waiting helicopter. As she flies off, she sees the corpses of the villagers scattered across the forest below. Alejandro is left behind, screaming helplessly up at the helicopter as it disappears into the sky. Back home, Justine testifies to the authorities, telling them the entire group died in the crash and she was the only survivor. She claims the natives found her, nursed her back to health and helped her escape the jungle. She completely denies having seen any signs of cannibalism and places the blame for the violence on the bulldozers invading tribal land. Later on, Justine wakes up to the sound of activists chanting outside her building. They're protesting for Alejandro to be rescued, wearing shirts with his face printed on them. A phone call comes in from a woman claiming to be Alejandro's sister. She says a satellite photo showed Alejandro alive in the jungle, and she wants to meet with Justine to talk. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy deep dive recaps like this, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. Drop a comment and let us know which movie you'd love to see next.